single biggest indicator of how the next election is going to go is the state of the economy. And we're due for a recession. I mean, we're already in a pretty bad state with coronavirus. But yeah, I mean, the next election is going to be determined by the state of people's personal finances going into that election. There's only been two times in at least modern US history that the incumbent party that holds the presidency has picked up seats in both houses of the Congress, in the Senate and in the House. So this is when a party picks up the presidency. We're talking about the first term of a new president. There's been only two times that president's party has picked up seats in the House and the Senate. One of those times was under FDR in 1934. One of those times was under George W. Bush in 2002. Both of those times, you had this kind of referendum on the policies of the president at the time. In 1934, you had a referendum on the New Deal, and people got to vote on whether they approved of the New Deal and whether they wanted it to continue, and they broadly did. And Democrats picked up seats in both houses of Congress. In 2002, under George Bush, you had essentially a referendum on the war on terror, and people were still losing their shit over that and 9/11 and the anthrax attacks. And they decided to continue on with Republicans being in power with the war on terror at the time. But for the incumbent party to keep their edge in Congress, and it's a razor thin edge in the House and the Senate right now, you really need a major referendum. You need a narrative of a big program that is being put forward for people to accept or reject. And Biden is just he's not reaching that standard now. He's taking us back in some ways to where we were before Trump. But it's a very muddied narrative. There's this stuff going on at the same time with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and there's this impeachment of Trump, which is actually going to delay the stimulus from happening until March, it looks like, until later this month or early March. So, it's a very muddied narrative, and there is no big, bold, grand narrative for people to vote on. The overwhelming likelihood is that Democrats are going to lose Congress in 2022, which, as far as like a lot of moderate Democrats are concerned, is maybe for the best. I mean, as far as they're concerned, a lot of the things they want to accomplish can be accomplished in 2 years. And then the Republicans can get back in control, and they can move on to, entitlement reform and cutting Social Security and Medicare, which is what they really want to do, a lot of these Democrats.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. I would just I would say it's because it's linked directly to how they handle this round of stimulus, which, first of all, I know people are just sort of going with the lingo or whatever, but we should really push for just calling it economic relief, crisis relief, however you want to put it. Stimulus makes it seem like we're trying to get people to buy more washing machines, and we want to help the factories put out a few more widgets a month or whatever.
That's what it is, essentially.
Yeah, well, that's the impression they want to have of something more mild for a more mild situation. But as we detailed, this situation is as dire as it's ever been. The economic effect is 4 times worse than the Great Recession. The way things were right before the pandemic were not particularly auspicious already. And this has just taken a wrecking ball to that rickety structure that we already had. And this lack of ambition in trying to really offer people relief is something that is definitely going to have electoral consequences regardless of whatever rhetoric and campaigning strategy they have. This is what people are going to remember. So I would say, absent a change, they're going to lose in 2 years. I think there's a chance, a possibility. I hope there's some kind of maneuver that the farther left crowd in the Democratic Party can pull to demand more somehow. That's the only way that they will avert losing the House and Senate in 2 years. As to whether they're actually planning to do that, that's part of what they actually want. I'm not so certain. But it all hinges on this. If they don't change, they're going to lose.